And we'll go ahead and get started. As we always do, we'll start the meeting with a moment of silence. A lot of stuff still going on. The people suffering in the south from Ida, the west coast, east coast suffering from flooding, and a lot of people in need. So moment of silence, please. Thank you, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started. Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
All right, Councilor Ocholi. I see you on. Councilor Moore.
Here.
Councilor Fender.
Here.
Councilor Platt.
Here.
Councilor Paulson.
Here.
Councilor Thompson. Councilor Thompson.
Did you hear me?
No, I didn't hear you.
Oh, here.
I got you. All right, cool. And Mayor Gibson.
Yeah.
All right, all accounted.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We have approval of minutes from August 18th, let's see, is that the other one? 2021, and August 19th of 2020, September 16th of 2020, October 21st of 2020. So if we've all had an opportunity to review those, then we'll need a motion for approval of those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Looks like it's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 3. We have a special presentation on Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program, which is also known as MSTIP. And we're very pleased to have Christina Deffebach, and let's see who else is on. That's the only one. I don't see anybody else. Christine, you there?
I'm here. I think Erin Wardell should be here. There she is.
Oh, okay.
She's there as
All
well.
right. How are you guys? Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you.
Well, this must be an outstanding presentation. This is the second time I've seen it in 3 days.
We hope you enjoy it again.
I'm going to pay more attention this time.
Okay.
Okay,
So,
thank you. And
well,
introduce yourselves. You know, we have new counselors that may not have come in contact with you guys, and I know they're very pleased to hear from you guys.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you. And thank you for inviting us to talk to you today about the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program. My name is Chris Deffebach, and I'm a senior policy analyst with the Land Use and Transportation Department at Washington County. And I see your mayor because I also staff the Washington County Coordinating Committee, where Erin and I have been frequently both there.
And I'm Erin Wardell. I'm the principal transportation planner for Washington County. And I spend a lot of time talking to Mike Weston. We've been working together on a number of different projects.
That is true. That is true.
So Chris, I'll go ahead and bring up the presentation.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like they are going to share it on their side.
Oh, okay. You're going to share it on your side. All right. Well, while that's getting set up, I just want you to know that we really appreciate your inviting us to come speak to you today about the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program. It's been a really important program over the 35 years it's been around, and it is that Erin is so this
Looks like
someone else.
Erin got disconnected and is coming back on.
Oh, okay.
I am back now. Sorry about that.
Erin,
And are you sharing the slides, Erin, or is Ronnie?
It looks like I have permission to share now, so I'll go ahead and do
All
that.
right. And then we'll get a little. All right. So there we go. You can put that. All right, thank you. So as I was saying, this is really a pleasure to be here. MSTIP has been around for a long time, since starting in 1986, and it has been an important tool to improve transportation mobility and safety as the county has grown over these last, 35 years. What we found is that not everybody who's here now was here in 1986 or even in 2016 when we last made the allocation. So we really want to use this opportunity to catch people up on what the program is all about. And as we start, we mentioned the Washington County Coordinating Committee. And I just want to emphasize at the beginning how important is the collaboration with the cities in this process, and how important the Washington County Coordinating Committee is throughout the process, as you'll hear more from Aaron. And well, there's a great funding source. Our needs always exceed the amount of revenue. So we really hope today to hear from you about your questions about the MSTIP program and questions about our approach as we move forward. So what I'm going to cover today, what Aaron and I are going to cover today, is our process with just a little background about the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program, and our work plan for how we are proposing to allocate the revenue we estimate for the 2023-2028 timeline. And then we have a variety of questions for you. Anything you want to share on what we're trying to achieve with the program, eligibility, and just any priorities you may have. So one of the first things we want to clarify is where this process that we're in now fits into the overall scheme of transportation, building the transportation system. So we are right here in this red and blue box where we're prioritizing the funding allocation. And the projects that get funded, they've already been planned. They're in a transportation system plan. I know you guys are working on that. They're in some plan that has been gone to the public, had public input, public support, where there's an active transportation plan, but has been through some process. And then following the selection to be funded, a whole nother process begins, again with a lot more public input as well about what does the project look like, the design of the project, and the construction of the project. So we are right in this stage here with the red and blue. Excellent. So just an overview of what the Major Streets Transportation Program Improvement Program is. It is the revenue comes from countywide property taxes that are dedicated to improving the major roads. It's always been a pay-as-you-go approach. And it's funded more than 150 projects since it was started in 1986, with investment of over 900 million, and that isn't adjusted for cost of living changes. That's some $86 in there. It's generally allocated over 5-year funding cycles, and the recommendations for the projects that get funded are come through the Washington County Coordinating Committee and then move forward to the Board of County Commissioners for approval. The project started in 1986 with a series of 3 serial levies approved by the voters. And then in 1997, the rate was adjusted and became part of the county's property tax. And since then, we've continued through additional cycles, not being too creative. They were known as MSTIP 1, 2, 3. And then after it folded into the county tax rate system, it went 3B, C, D, and E. And now we're trying not to call this 3F, but we sometimes slip. So the upcoming cycle will then identify the funding allocations for projects and programs for approximately 5 years worth of revenue. And I think that I can't remember if it's here. That doesn't mean that all the projects will be built in those 5 years, but this is the dedication of the revenue because projects can take longer than 5 years to build. So for example, the last allocation, which was completed in 2016 for the 5-year period between 2018 and 2023, it allocated 175 million. And that was based on a revenue estimates of about 35 million a year. It was, the bulk of that was for 23 multimodal projects. There was also a set aside for what we call an opportunity fund. And this is a very useful fund that is used for local match for grant applications. And it generates about a 5 or 6 to 1 for every dollar we put in. We're able to bring back revenue in grant funds. So that's been available to all the cities countywide and the county. There's also a set aside for the rural bridge improvements, and then a small amount, $500,000 as match for additional intelligent transportation system projects. So this is a map of all of the projects active and completed since the program began. And the blue shaded areas show some of the equity focus areas that were developed through the regional transportation plan to show the overlay of where the improvements been and where some of our people of color, limited English proficiency, or lower income people, communities living. The next slide. So this is a map we put together. We're just looking at it again before we came, of investments in the King Santee area. And I think you'll recognize some of these as Roy Rogers Road. There's Twelton Sherwood Road. There's a variety of projects that you know well in this area. And then we wanted to point out, we're looking in particular at the ones within King City. And we realized that early on, there was that the MSTIP project, MSTIP funded a sidewalk project along 131st and Fisher. And it was part of another King City Road project. So it illustrates the use of the MSTIP funds for the sidewalk improvements, for active transportation improvements, and also the ability to partner with others to develop complete streets. There may be a project in here that was funded by GainShare instead of MSTIP when we are tracking that down. I think this part of this came in on GainShare and TDT, but we're still pinning that down a little bit.
TVCTV and work it out.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn, so I've provided some overview, I hope, and I'm going to turn this over to Erin, who's going to go through the step-by-step process of what we are proposing for how to allocate the funding for the next cycle.
Thanks, Chris. So yes, we'll transition from talking about the history of the program and now start talking about the work plan we've developed for this next round of allocations. So this slide shows the 4 major milestones that we'll be working on accomplishing about over the next year, probably up until about November of 22. So here we are in summer, fall of 2021. We are working on confirming our work plan, and actually being here tonight is part of confirming the work plan. We took it to the Board of Commissioners on September 7th, and they asked us to take it to the WCCC this week and get approval, which we did. And so we're also going out and talking to city councils and other interested stakeholders. The board is expected to adopt it by R&O next Tuesday. We'll then move into developing our equity framework and public engagement plan so that we can go forward with talking to the community about this program. In winter, we will be working on gathering that community input around the values for this program and investments people would like to see in the transportation system. We'll be working on identifying eligibility criteria and evaluation metrics for projects. We know that we're going to have more projects proposed than we can actually fund. So this will be our process of winnowing down the list to what we can afford. And then we will initiate the project solicitation process, which is where the cities and the county will be submitting projects for consideration as a part of the program. And all of these steps will be done in conjunction with our city partners and then approved by the Washington County Coordinating Committee and approved by the Board of Commissioners. So it's a very iterative process. In the spring and summer, we'll be working on looking at all of those projects that were submitted and evaluating them again with our city partners. We'll be identifying the programmatic elements that will be a part of the program. So Chris talked about the programmatic elements. That's the MSTIP Opportunity Fund that can be used for competitive grants, the Rural Bridge Program, and the Intelligent Transportation System funds. Part of the discussion is, are those the right programs? Are they funded at the right amount? Should we have additional programs? So that'll be a part of the conversation. We'll then be ready to release the prioritized list and programmatic elements for public comment. We can go out to the community and ask them how they feel about the proposed projects and programs. And then that all gears up towards the fall. We'll take it through all of our decision makers and then finally to the Board of Commissioners in probably about November of 22, and they will adopt the project list, the programmatic elements, and then any updates to the program's administrative procedures. So this is pretty high level, thinking about these 4 milestones, but this includes approximately monthly check-ins with our city partner, staff partners through the Washington County Coordinating Committee's Transportation Advisory Committee, and then through the coordinating committee itself. So lots of time for feedback as we go through this process. I wanted to share what the past eligibility criteria was for MSTIP projects, and this is going to be one of the first things that we review with our partners. In the past, projects were eligible if they met multimodal needs, if they were on roadways of countywide significance, and I'll show that map, it's on my next slide. If it ranks as a high local priority, that basically means it's adopted into a transportation system plan or another plan. For King City, I know you're working on your transportation system plan right now. Washington County's transportation system plan covers King City, so don't worry, you do have a transportation system plan. And then overall that the program is geographically and financially balanced. And in the past, that has meant that we've distributed the funds approximately equally between the 4 commissioner districts. And you could see on the earlier map that the projects have been distributed around the county pretty well. So this is the map that shows the system of countywide interest, the eligible roadways. This is essentially all of the arterials in Washington County and then some collector facilities that were considered to carry regional traffic or serve a more important regional function. And so they were added to the map. So we've already started talking to our city partners about if there are additional roads that they'd like to add or amendments they want to make to this map. And we'll be talking to them and the coordinating committee again in October and November about this. So when we go out and talk to the community, especially the first time we talk to the community coming up in the fall and winter, we're going to be asking them about the outcomes of the program, and our proposed outcomes are listed here on the slide. 4 of these come from the Washington County Transportation System Plan, and that's safety, economic vitality, livability, and natural environment. And then we're including equity as our overarching outcome for what we'd like to see from the program. Part of that check-in with the community is, do these resonate with you, and how do we define these terms? Because we want to make sure that these reflect what the community would like to see in the transportation system. So a little bit more about our community engagement approach. We are working on hiring a consultant as a staff extension to help us do our community outreach, and particularly to help us support targeted engagement with our historically excluded communities. We'll have 2 big phases of community engagement. The first will be in the fall when we go out and talk about those outcomes and ask the community what's important to them in our transportation system. And then the second phase in spring of 22, we'll have our project list and our proposed program list, and we'll ask the community what they think of those proposed projects. We want to be able to work through established committees and organizations, and we want to acknowledge that with cities, you know your city, you know your community members. So we want to be able to partner with you, particularly if there already are dedicated equity staff or dedicated committees to thinking about these things in any community groups. And so we don't want to step on toes or duplicate work that's already being done. So this partnership is really going to be important to us as we go forward with the community conversations. And with that, we have our question slide. So any thoughts about the process? Any questions about the program in general? And then is there anyone else you recommend we check in with as we go through this first phase of thinking about the work program and the next phase of this allocation?
Well, thank you guys very much, and much appreciated. It would probably be a good idea. I mean, it was a pretty robust conversation with the members of the WCCC, the Washington County Committee, Coordinating Committee. And could you just give a brief overview of some of the concerns that were expressed in the meeting on Monday from the folks on that committee?
Yes, I can do that. There was concern that the WCC be engaged at each step of the way. And in particular concerns with defining some of the terms that we're using, like how do you define equity? If this is supposed to be considered equity, how do you define that and how is it applied in this process? And another one was to check in on the metrics, evaluation metrics. We have always used evaluation metrics and they're not, it's like, you know, has there been a lot of safety problems on the road? Is it important for emergency response services? There's a lot of freight traffic. Is there a high demand and congestion? Is there a need, you know, so we've always had a series of evaluation metrics that we use to evaluate the projects and talk to the public about them. So the WCC would like to express an interest to really be able to understand what evaluation metrics are being used and how they're defined. So that's another check-in point. And then a third one was, as Aaron just showed you, one of the outcomes that the projects, you know, or help support is natural environment. And there is questions about what does that really mean? And we have to, I think we recognize that we took that straight from our transportation system plan. And so we probably could be refined better. These days, you know, it used to mean more, protecting natural resources and things like that. Now it also tends to mean climate. You know, people can infer a variety of what does the natural environment really mean. So those are examples of specific check-ins. As Aaron said, we probably will be there every month with progress on this. Did I miss anything, Mayor Gibson, in your view?
Say that again, please.
Did I miss anything from that summary, from what you
Oh, no,
heard?
I think that was great. I think it was great. You definitely covered. So, Mike, do you have anything you want to add, or do you recall any specific projects that for King City that, you know, it might help the newer members of the council understand some of the things that have been done within King City related to this?
We used TDT on Fisher and 131st, but I don't think we've used MSTIP funds in our area necessarily. Chris, you and Aaron might know better than I do on what the county has spent MSTIP funds on.
Well, I think that map that we showed you at the beginning illustrated, and one of the things that it's been, I have to say, it's been interesting. I've enjoyed it, looking back at the history of MSTIP. And even from the very beginning, the intent was to serve, invest in projects that serve more than one jurisdiction. In other words, make investments that have more of a countywide benefit. And so some of the projects in the King City area may be, you know, Roy Rogers Road improvements, or Tarleton Sherwood Road, or, you know, Murray, others that provide those additional connections as well.
And I think, is it true that some of the funding that's been used to make improvements on Beef Bend might have fallen into this category?
We think that it was MSTIP funds that was used for some of the sidewalk improvements on Beef Bend. So it's a 35-year-old program. So some of these things were built, you know, 35 years ago. We think some of the MSTIP money in King City was spent in the late 90s. So which is also important, I think, in terms of thinking about what a project should look like, because our design standards and our community expectations have really changed over time. So the projects we build in the future may not look like the projects we built in 1986. So it's been an evolving program.
So one other question. I saw some information that said that there was a future project for Tile Flat Road that would potentially eventually connect to Beef Bend. Is that one that fits into this category as well?
So it doesn't at this time. That is a project that Washington County is working on. It is a potential future road. It's not yet identified in our transportation system plan. So we've been working with the city of Tigard because that's future Tigard, and talking to them about the process for making sure that we have it designated in their concept and comprehensive planning as they do their planning for their urban reserve expansion areas, and that it's reflected in the county transportation system plan as a part of our 20-year vision. But that's a really long-term transportation project. So 20 years from now, when it's identified in the map and we have growth happening, that could be a MSTIP candidate, but it won't be for this cycle.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from the team? Okay, I think you guys have been extremely thorough and I truly appreciate it.
Wow. That was very quick. We are certainly ready to come back anytime. And I'm sure you're going to be thinking about your own priorities, things that are important to your community and the area around your community. And as Aaron said, we'll want to partner, make sure we hear from your community about what the needs are.
Okay. All right. We truly appreciate it, you guys. All right. Thank you guys for coming.
Looks like, all right.
Question. I'm sorry.
Was that a question?
I did. Yeah, it's Shauna.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shauna. Go ahead.
Okay. Do you do work with the Safe Routes for Schools program?
We do.
Because one of our concerns with our elementary school here is that there are multiple places where it's not safe for children to walk to school. And these places are literally within, very close proximity to the school. One of them is the students that live on the backside of Bull Mountain, excuse me. There's nowhere safe for them to cross Beef Bend Road. So if they wanted to walk to school, it's not safe at all. And then also along 131st, where it meets Fisher Road, all of the children that live on the west side of 131st don't have a safe way to get to school because there's no sidewalk on the west side of 131st. So they would have to cross 131st to get to a sidewalk and then cross back to get to the school. So I know there's been a big focus for safe routes to school, and me as a parent and as a citizen, I have expressed the concerns because I would love for my children to be able to walk to school, but it's not safe. So I'm just wondering if there's something more that we can do or should do.
Yeah, it certainly can be considered, through this process, but we also have dedicated some of our gain share funding to support Safe Routes to School projects. And then we also use our MSTIP Opportunity Fund to support grants to the Connect Oregon's Safe Routes to School program, as well as the Regional Flexible Fund program at the metro area. And that Regional Flexible Fund grants are going to be opening up. I think the call for projects is going to start in December, I think. So that could also be other sources of funding.
Yeah, there's a number of different programs for funding the transportation system. So crossings on Beef Bend, which is an arterial, or 131st, which is a collector, could be eligible as a part of a MSTIP project. So they could be. But as Chris said, those are the types of projects that are eligible for other funding sources that are out there. And so that's something we could maybe follow up with Mike about, if something the city's interested in finding out more about and making some connections.
Right. They tend to be fairly competitive at the regional table as well. Safe Routes to School and safety projects.
Meaning they're attractive.
Attractive.
People like to fund Safe Routes to School programs if they can. And so, and certainly being close to an elementary school that's near an arterial like that, those projects can, like Chris said, be very competitive. So we'd be happy to work with Mike on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. And safety always has to rise to the top with our children. So I appreciate that, Shauna. Okay. Any other questions from anyone else? Concerns? Okay. Well, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. And you guys have a wonderful evening. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay, we'll move on. They will go to public comment at this time, open forum. At this time, the council will be happy to receive your comment pertaining to items on the agenda, including questions, suggestions, complaints, and items for future agendas. Each person's time will be limited to 3 minutes. Whoever is going to speak, please state your full name and your address.
I have Viva on my list first.
Okay, Viva.
I didn't start my video. Hold on. I probably clicked it twice. Good evening. I'm
Viva.
Viva Gaylor. I live at 12700 Southwest Beef Bend Road. And tonight I have my King City Community Foundation hat on. I want to report that we had a successful declutter day on August 21st. And thank you. We, in 3 hours, filled up a dumpster, and I was a little shocked when I got to the park about 8:45 that there were about 30 cars waiting. I had to walk to the park. I couldn't drive down there. And I would like to ask, I did tell people that I would ask again that we sponsor this again and ask for the city sponsorship. And for 2 days next year, August 30th, no, wait, I did it wrong, April 30th and August 20th. Can't read my own writing. And we do not have to approve anything tonight. I just wanted to report on that. I also wanted to apologize that I did not communicate well with Ronnie on the calendar for our last Tuesday of the month meeting. And Ken Gibson and I talked on the 24th of August. The last Tuesday would have been the 31st, and someone showed up at the Zoom meeting. And I went, oops, it did not contact the city. And I apologize. We've talked about keeping that website updated, and us in the community have to do our part to communicate well to poor Ronnie, or he doesn't have accurate information. So I am publicly shamed that I failed on communication, and I want to admit that it was a poor example, but the clutter word got out well, and I was pleasantly surprised. And one cute story from Frank, who told me this was a perfectly top of the line radio in 1932. And so we got rid of some old clutter. And with that, I just wanted to report on it and ask to, let's think about it again. And next time I would like to ask for more volunteers. And the shred guy suggested that we do a canned food donation for anybody that brings anything, shred or dump wise. They donate to the canned food, and we coordinate with like the Oregon Food Bank, so that we're giving the community, we're out there, you can clean out your cupboards with little food when you're cleaning out your garage. Thank
you. We did have do that in the past, and it's a great benefit to do that as well. But I do want to say that it was well run. Viva and the rest of the team did an outstanding job. I participated. I shredded tax documents from back in 1889. It wasn't quite that far, but it was 1989 for sure. But it felt like it. And I got a few things out of my garage as well. So, and I did hear stories about, at least one story, where someone said that they can park their car in the garage now because of that cleanup day. So it was outstanding. And thank you so much, Viva, and the rest of the foundation members for putting that together. And I wholeheartedly support doing it twice next year. I think it'd be of great benefit. Okay.
I think so too. I would, Viva, I must say it was all Viva. For those on the Zoom, know that I am also the president of the foundation. I restate that for transparency here, but this was all Viva, and we applaud her because she did it by herself and did an excellent job. I have to say, I took down a lot of shredding and some things. but I was really surprised at how much furniture was kind of thrown away. That I think for next year, one thing that would be great is coordinating with someone, maybe Easter Seals. I know the Oregon president of Easter Seals lives in the KCCA, and maybe coordinating with someone who can stop and pull out furniture that could be reused, and then put it aside to another truck or something like that. So I think there was a lot of takeaways, and I know Viva has a huge list of suggestions for next year, so it will be better, bigger and better next year. But Viva, great job. Thank you.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. It was very well done and very worthwhile. Okay, Ronnie, who else do we have?
That's all I had on my list, so you can open it up.
Okay, all right, we'll move right along. Thank you very much. We don't have any unfinished business, so we'll move right into item 6, which is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we have, Mike is going to talk about that.
I will try if I can find it in my packet here. Should be right around here. All right. I will read it into the record, the proclamation. Whereas domestic violence is a serious crime that affects people of all races, ages, gender identities, socioeconomic levels, religions, backgrounds, beliefs, and abilities, but often has a disproportionate effect on communities and groups impacted by inequity. And whereas domestic violence includes physical, emotional, social, sexual, spiritual, financial, and digital abuse, and can occur between family members, intimate partners, and within dating relationships. And whereas more than 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men in the United States report having experienced domestic violence, stalking, sexual assault, or physical assault by an intimate partner during their lifetimes. And whereas domestic violence impacts vulnerable victims, including children, at approximately 50% of Washington County. Children who are child abuse victims also live in homes with domestic violence. And whereas multiple scientific and medical studies show that trauma, especially for children who experience what is known as adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, increase the likelihood the individual may struggle with addiction, mental health, or other challenges later in life. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has had a continual tremendous impact on survivors seeking and being able to access ongoing services. And whereas in 2020, the Family Justice Center served a total of 1,466 volunteers, and the Domestic Violence Resource Center provided 12,236 crisis services to survivors despite challenges due to the pandemic. And whereas our Washington County community has united together to address the impacts of all forms of family violence, including domestic violence, child abuse, and neglect, and is working to establish a new facility called the Family Peace Center of Washington County. And whereas domestic violence incidents are some of the most complex and dangerous incidents that law enforcement respond to in our community, putting their lives at risk every day in the belief that a coordinated community response is necessary to support survivors, hold offenders accountable, and work toward ending the cycle of violence. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent platform to show support for the domestic violence advocates, crisis hotline staff, victim service organizations, the prosecutors who hold offenders accountable, and law enforcement officers in our community, and provides the citizens of Washington County the opportunity to learn more about preventing domestic violence, and shows support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, resources, hope, and assistance to victims. Now, therefore, be it resolved, Mr. Mayor, yourself,
Yes.
do hereby proclaim the month of October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank you.
All right, well done. Thank you, Mike. All right, we'll move right along. That was A. Now we need to move to B, resolution number R-2021-09, resolution extending the declaration and declaring a state of emergency. Oh, I lost mine. Whoops. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that.
It's basically a resolution extending the emergency clause that we've been
City of
operating.
King City. All right. So Mike, you want to talk a little bit about that?
basically, if we're operating under emergency protocols, such as we are right now, then we need the emergency resolution to be extended. And so that's what this resolution does. It just continues on what we had already put in place last, what was it, April? Late March, early April last year.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
One of the things that we all understand is that the pandemic is still having an impact on our business. And as we all know, we agreed to shut down City Hall to prevent the public from coming in at least through the month of September. And we will reevaluate it at the end of September and determine what we want to do from that point on. So it's not over by any stretch of imagination, and having the emergency declaration in place is super important as we move forward. So we're going to have a motion and a second and a vote on this.
I motion to approve resolution number R2021-09.
Second.
All in favor?
That was.
I have unanimous vote.
Yep. Okay. All right, thank you all. Appreciate it. Any comments or concerns or questions? Okay, moving on to
Be financial.
yeah, master plan, transportation system plan update. Mike, you got the floor again.
Okay. The update is there is no update yet. We are working with 3J to develop a scope. We have a meeting tomorrow morning with 3J and Metro to discuss the cost of taking a look, further deeper dive into east-west connectivity throughout the expansion area, and figuring out what kind of analysis. We're still waiting on final draft of the TSP to come out, as well as some of the information, data analyticals, all that stuff, turn warrants, queuing, logic behind some of their findings. We just don't have any of that yet. We're still waiting on it. So we did talk with ODOT last week. Keith and I sat down with ODOT and came up with a list of things that we want to see from DKS before this thing is a wrap. And we have a meeting to talk with Carl at DKS and see if we can't get everything at least to us in some sort of format or some sort of informative manner, so that we can implement it through this second look at the east-west connectivity. So at least we have data sets. You know, we don't even have data sets. So that's where we're at. Transportation system plan, master plan's on hold until we get it figured out. So we've been sitting here treading water for at least a month now.
So is it highly likely now that nothing will occur by the end of the year, that we're looking possibly at early next year before we are ready to have any kind of decisions being made, where we would take a look at this and say, yeah, we really need to make a decision?
Yeah, I think it will be probably mid to late spring of 2022 before we start into the it would be like the pop-up process, you know, the post-acknowledgement plan adoption process through Department of Land Conservation and Development. So that usually starts with a like 45-day notice over to Department of Land Conservation and Development. We do that once we actually have a working draft of what we want to propose. And then we go through a series of workshops and presentations at the Planning Commission level. Planning Commission basically hears the public hearing on the matter, makes a recommendation to the City Council. City Council will hear the matter, hold a public hearing, make any formal recommendations, and then we move those into an adoptable format and then move the ordinance into adoption. So that whole process is, probably about a 3 to 6 month process, just that process alone. And so right now, my guess is we'll probably kickstart that process February maybe of 2021, and then you're looking at
2022.
5 months after that. Yeah, in 2022. Yeah.
So
Jamie, go ahead.
Just given kind of everything going on and the kind of contention and then the cool down again, because we're on this hiatus, kind of a pause, I think we have a really phenomenal opportunity to kind of reset public engagement and, come up with our outreach. And so I just want to be clear so that we can align expectations. And I think Mayor and Mike, you and I talked about, Micah and I went on the site, the kind of expansion area tour with a few residents from Rivermead and a few homeowners along the expansion area. And I think it was a really productive meeting. And we had some feedback. And one of the things that I think was great was just saying that we should have an update at every council meeting, even if there's no update, so that people kind of understand. But for right now, just so that I'm really clear, there's going to be no decision making by us or the planning commission by the end of the year, because we're still just kind of waiting. But at what point are we going to re-engage the community to kind of bring this full circle around and start talking again? Is that
when we have information?
Okay.
Like, we've been planning for 4 years, and the information that we've gathered over 4 years doesn't appear to be satisfactory to the citizenry. So we're trying to do a deeper dive,
Right.
a dive that we usually would not do at this level of planning. Most of the time at this level of planning, you're at 10,000 foot elevation. You don't really do deep dives into all the particulars. That's usually done at the development level by the developer. So we're being asked to do a dive into this information that we typically wouldn't have to do, but we are. And so hopefully we'll have information. I can't say if the information that we gather is going to change anything. Most likely, I don't know.
Sure.
I doubt it will, because we based all of our designs and concepts off the best information that we had available. So if that information holds true and it's still the best possible situation at the end of the day, then that's the situation. So for me to sit here and predict what the future beholds or what is in the crystal ball, I just can't do that. And I don't know how much information this is actually going to provide us, if any, more than what we already have. It might just prove exactly what we already have.
Yeah. And
But I do think,
let me just say the important part of this is that because we're extending the period to try to get the answers and have a better understanding of what needs to be done is not a failure. It is absolutely necessary in order for us to get to the point where we know exactly why we're doing or recommending what we're going to be recommending or doing.
Right.
And I think that's vitally important to take these steps and to take this time to understand what it is that needs to be done very clearly, and to be able to clearly communicate that to the community. This is where we are, and this is what we see, and this is why we think this is what needs to be considered. And we're going to take the time to do that. And I think that's what we're saying. And we can't, at this point, start trying to press to get an answer when the most important thing is to get the correct response to what it is we need to do.
Sure.
And that's what we're going to do. So I think for all of us, Jamie, you're absolutely right. We're going to figure out how and what we have to communicate to the residents of King City. But we won't do that, to Mike's point, until we really have some hard information that says this is what it is and this is why it's what it is. And that's what we're going to do.
And
Okay?
I think that's excellent. And I think, because I think at this point, what everyone really wants are the answers that we're waiting for, right? Because
Right.
that's the next level of discussion. I just want to make it very clear, though, that until we have that, we are just continuing on a hiatus status, right? Because we're waiting for that information. Because what I think, what has been communicated over and over again,
Right.
to me, and I know others here, is just that there's this panic because there's just confusion as to what comes next and when the vote is and who's doing what, right? There's just general confusion all around. And so
Because we're not there yet. Jamie, it's because we're not there yet. And people are jumping the gun and they're getting 10 steps ahead of where we are.
Right.
Like, we are not there yet. And we aren't the ones that build the road. Like, people think that we're going out there and bulldozers putting in the road. We aren't doing that.
Right.
Like, we are doing a plan. We're just putting lines on maps for 20, 30, 40 years down the road. Like, people need to get out of their head that we're actually trying to build something, because we're not. We're just designing a plan.
And the way we have to portray this, we're not doing what we're doing to get to a specific answer. We're doing this because we're looking to get the right answer and to get this right. People who have made up their minds that they don't want something, that we don't even know what the real answer is yet.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to work to that end, and I agree with everything that's being said, but our responsibility and our objective here is to make sure that people, first of all, understand the process. And we have to keep driving people back to the process. The process is ongoing. Even though, Jamie, you said we're in a hiatus, we're never in a hiatus on this. We're behind the scenes work that's taking place every day to get to the conclusion of what is best for the future of King City and this new development. And that's what we're doing. That's what we're going to do.
And
Okay?
I just want to be clear, though, because there's been a lot of work and a lot of information and data gathering and a lot of stuff that's gone into this plan to date.
Right.
All right. There's a lot of work in that. And there's a lot of stuff underneath the surface that it's not easy to explain. You know, it's hard to get across all the components and all the pieces of a plan across to the general public that hasn't been involved with it since the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, they have been involved with it since the beginning, but they don't necessarily like the answers that it's coming up with. Okay.
Right.
So,
and I didn't mean hiatus. I just, when we drive people to the process, I didn't mean hiatus as in we're all on pause. I meant hiatus as far as community engagement. And there are people who we know want to be involved, that want, and so I think that when we're driving people to the process, we just need to be clear on what the next step in the process is. And so all I'm trying to confirm is, for people who are watching here, who are going to watch the replay, who are going to talk to other people, that there is not going to be anything in the next step of what the community can engage in on until we have the information we're waiting for.
Absolutely.
And that's all I'm trying to say, is that right?
I don't think that's accurate.
Okay.
I think we're going to have information coming out. There's always opportunities for the public to engage. They can engage at any point, at any council meeting, any planning commission meeting. There's hundreds of opportunities to engage, so saying that there are not going to be any opportunities is, I feel, on the surface is inaccurate, because there is lots of opportunity. But we as a city will not go out into the public to present anything or hold a public forum on this topic until we actually have information to support what we're trying to say.
Right.
And
Okay.
that's what the consultants are supposed to be scoping and working on right now. So like, I know that the council wants to go out in public and, you know, have conversations about this stuff, but we're just setting ourselves up for failure because we don't have the information that we need.
Right. And I think we're all on the same page with that. And I think we all understand. And that's why I said what I said, you know, there's work being done and there's information that's coming together, but we're not at a point where we can say we're going to have a charrette and we're going to present anything at this point. And,
Right.
and that's the important thing for everybody to understand where we are with the process and what we're trying to achieve with it. I want to hear from anyone else who has a comment on this. This is a whole council discussion, and it's important. Jamie and Mike, you guys are spot on with what we're talking about. But if there are if there's any input from any other council member, I want to hear it. Shauna?
Hi, yeah. I just think it's important to publicly say that a lot of people have been talking about Fisher Road, but I'm not sure how many people actually understand that Fisher Road is not the only connecting road that's being looked at. There are several roads just north of Fisher Road that are also being looked at. So I just think it's important to put that out there. If people do listen back to this, for people to know that it's not just Fisher Road that's being proposed. And if Fisher Road isn't extended because of so much public outcry, it's going to be the next street to the north or the next street to the north of that. So it's still going to be going through the same neighborhoods, the same streets. So I just think that's an important point that I've been wanting to make, and just be crystal clear that if it's not Fisher Road, it's going to be your neighbor's road, you know, right next to it. So as everyone else has said, we just need to be patient and listen for all the information to come in. And I agree with Jamie. This has been a nice kind of cooling down period. And I do appreciate that the people behind the Stop the Fisher Road signs have taken the majority of those down. So thank you for that to whoever's listening out there.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, Shauna.
It's Smart, and I agree with whatever.
And Micah and Smart. Smart, go ahead, then Micah.
Yes, so I think, like I've always said, this is a process that is very sensitive to pretty much everyone. But again, as a council, we are looking for the good of the city, our citizens. Everything we're doing is taking into consideration the concerns of everyone. And like Shauna said, it's about listening, being patient, and most importantly, being respectful. I mean, to bring respect into the whole discussion and everything that we do. I think we track and will continue to be open to what is coming, and also ask that as residents be patient with us, and also we all do it in a very respectful manner, that we all make sure we carry everyone along. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Smart. Micah?
I just wanted to make a quick comment related to one of the things Mike mentioned with regards to the this is just planning, and that we're not the ones building the road. I think that in general, most of the people that have engaged with the city so far and expressed concerns understand that now. But one of the things that was reiterated a couple times on that walk that Jamie and I had was the fact that while those are just lines on a map at this point, those lines tend to translate into something further down the road, and that's where their concern comes from. So I just want us to be conscious of that more than anything, is that while yes, during the planning process, these are just lines on a map, they also do represent something that in the future, which there are concerns about. So again, not trying to say anything that's you don't already know, but just to reiterate the fact that part of the concern that we heard on that walk was that while they are just lines on a map, they do represent something in the future that they have concerns over.
Okay. All right. And it's part of the process. It has to be there so that we can have, make a determination which is best. And that's all part of that process, okay? With no decision being made yet. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I know we've hashed this to death for so long, but every time someone says something, it makes me think, oh, but there's one more little tiny thing that we didn't nitpick just yet.
Yeah.
So Micah, yes, but also no. So I think the reason we keep saying lines on a map is because we haven't reached the stage of approval. All of us know that after we approve, it is more than lines on a map. It is a plan. So the reason we keep saying that is because it's not the plan yet. So it will be the plan after we all say it's the plan, right?
Yeah, I was not saying that it wasn't. I was saying that representing it as just lines on a map, though, that there is more behind that is causing some of the concern, and that's just all I wanted to represent. Is not that it's, you know, that there's any approval to it or anything like that at this point, but again that's what is seen as a representation, and I just wanted to make sure that we're conscious of that.
I think the underlying point is just
we are so far off here. We need to stop. We really need to stop because we don't know where this is going yet, and we're digging ourselves deeper in a hole here. So we need to stop the conversation and wait until we actually have more information so that we can actually have evidence and information to talk to, because we do need these lines on the map to accommodate the future growth of the city, right? And we need to put the lines on the map so that we can pay for those infrastructure improvements. But we don't have all the data, and we need all the data before we start making statements. So I would just caution y'all, we need to move on.
Okay.
That's fine. I just think the underlying current of what Micah was trying to portray was just the feeling of flippant, right? Just flippant comments. And that's not what, Mike, you're saying that, Kate, your point exactly. And so I think we just need to acknowledge we don't want to be flippant with people's frustrations, and we have to wait until the data comes out, Mike, so we can have informed discussions that are better, right? I completely agree. And I think with that,
I mean, just look at the comments. Mike Myers just all of a sudden said lines are meaningful. It's a plan. Like, we're digging ourselves deeper right now.
Okay,
so
let me try to wrap this up. I'm going to wrap this up, okay? This is why I keep saying that the one thing that people need to understand, that this is a process. A line on the map has a meaning. It's important. And all of these things, but just keep in mind that because it's there doesn't mean that a final decision has been made on anything, but it's there for a purpose. It will always be there for a purpose. It's a planning process, and it has a purpose, and it will maintain that purpose until we have all the data that supports what that final decision needs to be. And that's it. So let's move on. Okay. Thank you for the update.
Can I wrap it up with one thing, Ken?
Okay. Final comment.
This is just what I want to say, because we had talked about at the last council meeting about me holding the listening sessions, and we're going to push those out. I just want so people are clear on the thing. We are pushing those out also until we have information back. So we're going to just put that on hold. Once we have more information, we can circle back around and have a discussion about that. I do want to continue and have them, but I don't think we should have them until we have more information and concrete answers that we can provide, because people will just be frustrated, right? So we'll circle back on that.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Final comment, Shauna, on this subject.
Just on a side note here, I've said this before and I'm going to say it again. It's not appropriate at a city council meeting to be reading and commenting on the comment section. We have a public forum part of the meeting. So I'm not sure, Ronnie, if you can turn off the comment section if it's too distracting. For me, I just ignore it, but it's really not appropriate to be engaging with people who are making comments on in the middle of our city council meeting.
I don't have control over that. Mr. Mayor, it's yours, your floor.
Okay, so I haven't read them, and I'm
What we
not
can do
going
is do a
to.
different format in the future, like a webinar format, so that it doesn't have those sort of features.
Okay, all right. So I'm not going to comment on it because I don't know what it says, and I'm not going there right now. So well, let's just move on. Okay. All right. So let's get the agenda back up. Let's move on.
Ronnie, I think you're up.
Ronnie, get the agenda back up. You're next up anyway. You're going to talk about.
I was writing minutes. All right. So real quickly, let me get to my notes here. So as you all know, most of you approved Caselle into implementation for our accounting software and payroll and all that. So right now, payroll is scheduled to come out January 1st, 2022. And then all the other applications are currently in the implementation queue, which meaning that they gathered all the information that the city needed. And now we're just sitting in line until our turn. And that is, we're probably about about 3 to 4 months after that, once we get our turn. So probably about February or March.
Okay. All right.
That's it.
So we have an audit that's starting. That process, what's the timeline for the audit? I know that I had a pre-audit document that I needed to fill out. I did that. Where do we stand on that?
Probably like December, I think.
Okay. All right. Does that go to all counselors or was it just to me?
Should go to all counselors.
Did you guys get that email from Mira?
To return the survey
Yes.
document. Yep.
Okay.
I returned mine already.
All right, Kate, you did not get it?
I don't think so. I will look now. When was it sent?
It was last week.
Yeah, end of last week, I think.
Yeah.
I did not get it.
Who else did not get it?
Okay, I see it. It was a forward on 9/2.
Okay.
It said,
9/2.
yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll make sure that Dave, are you getting email on your King City website? I mean, your King City email?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
That's probably why you haven't seen it. Anyone else didn't get it? Okay. We'll make sure that you get it. It's important that you fill it out. Shauna, Micah, and Smart, you guys have all seen it? Okay. Let's just make sure we get it filled out and return it.
I apologize. I didn't fill out the form. I didn't think it was for me to fill out, but I will fill it out. So I apologize.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it. All right. Ronnie, anything else on Caselle?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Any questions related to Caselle or concerns? Okay. Financials. Mike, are you prepared to, or just looks like you're on the move?
Yeah, I'm on the move toward the office right now, so it's probably going to be 10 minutes before I can dive in. I can try. When I reviewed the financials, it looked like we were doing pretty good, though. Everything was where it kind of needed to be for our revenue and expenditures. We like to, budget conservatively, and I think the numbers reflect that. We do have a couple things that I think we're going to need to address at the half, through a supplemental budget amendment or something to that effect. But otherwise, I think we're pretty good. I do have some concerns moving forward with some of our or OLCC taxes, especially the marijuana one, given the new legislation and bill that passed recently, that's going to basically take some of those funds and that we were receiving and the schools were receiving, and now it gets diverted to other services and things. So, but yeah, I can't look at the documents right now until I get to the
I'll
office.
tell you what we'll do. We'll come back to that until you get back to the office. And what we'll do is go to report out from Chief and anyone else who has a report out to do, and we'll come back to it. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Ernie, where are you?
I'm here.
All right. What do you got for us?
I just got very little that we are doing a interview panel coming up in the next 2 weeks. There's going to be 2 separate dates interviewing candidates for patrol officer and an anticipated patrol officer opening, and trying to establish a list. So that'll be coming up. We did get a number of candidates, and we've whittled that down to, I think it's around 10. And so hopefully we'll have some interviews and be able to cull some good candidates out of there and go from there.
So 10 candidates for 2 openings?
Potentially, yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That
So
sounds-
we'll be there, and then I'll have some more information for you concerning something we'll put on. I can get out some information on. We've discussed it before, but the Lexipol manual, which is policy and procedure manual, that basically is, everybody is gone to, just because it's a vetted practices of federal, state, and local best practices. And it's something that's put out by a company out of California. There is a chief here in Oregon, Jeff Spalding, who was formerly the Beaverton chief and who's now the chief in Astoria, that was one of the main people in that company. And it's something that I was going to speak to him, and I'll get you as much information on it as possible, because I'm going to come ask him for some money.
Okay.
To help me, implement that with
money?
with us work with Brian and I having to cover 70 hours right now. It's impossible for me to dive into that project alone. And so it's something that, in best case scenario, if I was to do it and get in and do a lot of the editing myself, I'm told between 4 and 6 months if I was doing it by myself. And then if the company's doing it and I'm helping out, it's something we can push out a lot quicker. And it's just something that's best for the city, and it's best for us as far as best practices go, and protects us.
Okay.
So that'll be coming up. I'll get that out to you. And I believe that's about it. I was trying to stall enough for Mike there to.
I have questions, Ernie. I have questions.
And I have a question for
I'll take questions.
Okay. Can you say the name of the manual again?
Lexipol, Lexipol. Okay.
And then the 10 candidates, are any of them lateral candidates?
Yes, lateral candidates from out of state.
Okay.
We did get a few that are some candidates that are a little older, a little more established, maybe had a career already in another state, and some of the states where they could retire after 20 years. And
experienced veterans. Perfect. Thank you.
Exactly.
And Ernie, thank you.
Shauna has a question.
Shauna, go ahead.
I have a question for you, Chief. So as many of us on here know that have kids at Deer Creek, there was a lock-in the other day because of a shooting that was up on Bull Mountain, somewhere on Bull Mountain, not too far from school. My question for you is, when something like that occurs, what is the response, if any, that your department, what's your response as far as protecting the school?
So in that particular incident, and they're calling it a lock-in now, they've changed the verbiage. That particular incident, our lieutenant, Brian Sigler, was the first on scene with the person who was wounded. And so he's, you know, with us being as small as what we are, he's actively involved in that situation. And so that's a rolling, literally as he's rolling by the school, he looked down to see the kids up on the soccer field, and he radioed in that, hey, let's go ahead and lock this in, because it was initially dispatched as a drive-by shooting that had occurred, and you had one person down. So it becomes, you know, so he does the lock in, and then, and honestly, and so there's a little bit of, you know, where people want all this information and think that they deserve to know right away what the information is that's going on. And there are some tactical considerations that need to be brought out, and to where we don't really, you know, look, if it's something that's involved with the school, you'd see a lot of us there really fast, right? And so this was one of those that, you know, it was up on Westminster Road, and to a known subject to us in law enforcement. And so, you know, it was one of those that it was quickly established that, okay, this, you know, this wasn't something that was fluid, that was moving towards the school or anything like that. So it didn't rise to the where we would post up people around the school. But that would be something that you would see, is, to answer the other part of the question, is if there's something that is close to the school, then you would see us, you know, as bodies start raining down into that scene, because at our disposal, you know, we can get a lot of people there really fast from not only Washington County, but outside of Washington County. And so you would see people come into that area and post up around in that area. And so it just kind of makes a real big law enforcement presence known. And I think you could look at maybe a good example of that would be, there was that homicide that occurred up in the bank there on Murray, and there was a bunch of us rolling around looking for somebody that had been carjacking people. And I want to say there was 56 cars, patrol cars, that came raining into that area really fast. And so, you know, that's something that would happen if, you know, something, God forbid, ever happened that was that bad. But, you know, obviously this was bad that somebody got shot, but, you know, it was limited to that area and determined to be pretty quickly that it was just isolated, and the suspect was no longer there and not in the direction, I believe, of what the school was. So, you know,
Ernie, approximately how far from the school did this occur?
It's within, so Westminster, so
Westminster's off 150, right?
no, it's short of 150th. It's right by the first apartment complex there as you're going west on Beef Bend. So that would be,
So it was about a mile or less?
Nah, it's less than a mile.
Less
Let's put
than
it
a
that
mile.
way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's pretty darn close, and I can understand
It is.
the concern.
Yeah, very close.
Oh, how close does it, just to follow up, how
Mhm.
close would it need to be for more of a police presence? Like if it was, you know, across the street or a block away? Because it was, you know, like you're saying, it was fairly close. How close would it need to be?
Oh, you know, I mean, if you're talking, you know, if you look at what you said there in specifics, like if it's across the street, there'd be a big presence, you know, just because the school was there. And if you have an outstanding suspect that's out there, you'd see a rather large, and as a scene commander, we can keep requesting cars and say, I need more. And so it's very, you know, I wish I could give you a blanket answer, but it's very call or scene dependent. And so if it's something that where we feel, okay, this is, yeah, we need more people here. Because a lot of times there's just we have to have the ability to keep people away from the school, if that makes sense, you know, because there's a lot of people that are going to be raining in there that want to get their kids,
right,
and stuff like that. Because out where I live in Scappoose, they had one the other day, and I have my son is texting me at work, you know, saying, hey, we're in lock-in, what can you tell me? And I'm like, I don't know, they're not going to tell me. And so, you know, it's just something, just pay attention to the staff and go from there. But yeah, we have the ability to have a lot of people in there really quick, and to keep them coming. So it's something that, as far as response wise, I'd say we could have a lot of people, and kind of leave it at that.
Thank you. One last question.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Did you catch the bad guy?
To my knowledge, there's no.
No.
So yeah, so I think that's still an active Washington County case. I know we got a few updates today. Not at liberty to share, but I hadn't heard that anybody had been apprehended on that yet.
Okay.
Is it the person that lives up there? Because you said he was known to you, like
That's the victim.
the victim lives up there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
don't know
the victim lives up there. Yes.
the shooter doesn't live there.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Okay.
Ernie, I have a question.
Okay.
Ken,
Go
did you
ahead.
have a follow-up?
Oh, yeah, but it's a different subject.
So,
But
Ernie, on there is a long thread on Nextdoor which about the school, right? We all know school went back, and several people were very frustrated with the traffic.
Jamie, you stole my question. That was the same thing I was.
Okay, right. So one of the things so my position, which I've made clear, but is right that we as a council historically the decisions that we made for 131 predominantly were to address school safety. We will always choose school safety over the inconvenience, which is a tiny inconvenience, a blip of time for drivers, but nonetheless, it is frustrating to be in traffic. I think a lot of people who don't have kids probably didn't realize back to school was happening, and also back to school drop off during COVID was like 12 times longer than normal because everyone's feeling guilty about sending their kids into school. Anyway, one of the comments, several of the comments were about how the design of 131, people are concerned about emergency vehicles when there's a traffic jam getting through. And I encourage people to reach out to you and to Lieutenant Sigler to talk about it. But I just want to actively, just address it here that both police and the fire department and the ambulances do not need to adhere to road rules, right, during emergencies. And there's a number of things that can be done when there's a traffic jam. And can you just address a little bit about the concern? Because that the inconvenience to drivers, candidly, my position is leave earlier, leave later, go a different route, because safety of kids trump all, and that's the end of that conversation. But for the safety of emergency vehicles, right? Can you talk just very briefly on that?
So as far as a response, like say I have to get somewhere.
Right.
You people may have seen me run the wrong way up 99 for 5 miles during rush hour or certain days where all of a sudden there's a code 3 cover call in North Tigard, that's up near the Fred Meyer or whatever, and we sometimes have to cross over and go the other way. Now, is it done quickly? No, but we do it as safely as what we can. Now they are very wide sidewalks that are there, and I have run sidewalks, just trying to maneuver my way around because some people are concerned about moving and stuff like that. So there are ways that we can get around. Now, the other consideration there too is that you have to be very aware of what time of day it is, and there are other routes that we need to take. Now, with that said, obviously if we have to get to that spot, well, we've got to get to that spot. And sometimes it's going to take people having to drive past where they're intended to go to help, get vehicles out of the way. Or, if it's a larger rig, if I'm in my pickup and a rig needs to get by me, maybe I go up on, put a wheel up on the sidewalk to help an emergency vehicle get by, because fire engines are going to be a little tough to do that. It's a big rig, and if you get a big air horn behind you and you figure out that I need to get out of the way, and we kind of work our way through there. But as we saw before with that road design change, we saw that it figured itself out, but it started to flow a little bit better when school was in the first time. Yep. Obviously I've got, the information we heard was that there are still a lot of individual drop-offs by parents just because of COVID. And then I'm not aware of your all's how many bus routes were shut down, if there's any shut down. And
There's a bus shortage. There's a bus driver shortage. I know
Yeah,
that.
and there is, and there's
Everywhere.
four bus routes out here where I live that aren't being transported at all.
Right.
And so, you know, it's something that, you know, we see people dropping off, and it's frustrating. It's something we haven't been used to in about a year and a half.
Right.
And so, you know, it's something that we work on. We've had officers out there in the afternoon. They may not be the most visible, but, you know, been in areas where they're trying to monitor in case, you know, traffic's going the wrong way, and trying to, you know, make moves that are unsafe. And that I've heard comments about, you know, stuff that bordered on criminal, you know, driving that happened out there. So it's something that we're aware of, and it's just something, but yeah, we can respond to certain areas. And if it's, you know, it's just something we have to tell other responders, hey, pick another route. This road is blocked.
Right.
And, you know, they try to find another way to get there. It's the same way if a train was blocking a roadway, you'll hear us pop up, hey, we're stopped by a train. I need somebody to go a different route if I got to go. And it just obviously expands the response time a little bit, but, you know, we have to get there safely to begin with.
Right. And you know, the way I feel about it, it will die down.
It already has. It's already at least half as bad as it was in the beginning. And I know the school sent out some more instructions, and they're tweaking the pickup and drop off. And, you know, I think they've responded really well. And candidly, right, people just need to let the kinks get worked out, let the parents figure out, right? There's a lot of new parents, people just need to relax a little bit,
Right,
in my opinion.
Absolutely. I agree. So thanks to you and Lieutenant Brian, and I know Courtney spent some time out there to help direct traffic. So much appreciated. And I'm sure it will rectify itself as time moves on. So I think we're good. So we're going to go back to Mike, and Mike is in office now, and we still have to go through our financials. So Mike, I'm going to give it back to you, and then we'll come back to report outs.
Sure. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
And
Cool.
we can see you.
All right. I wasn't so sure swapping from, you know, laptop to desktop here. So
Good.
anyways, we were on financials. So, you know, looking through the financials, most of our revenues are coming in pretty good. I think we're above our projected revenues for the year at this point. So most of those elements look pretty good. Street fund looks good. Parks is down, I think, because we haven't had the developments come in that we were projecting. The development at 131st and the development at Ponderosa Pines, both are coming, but not there yet. So once those come in, we should see a boost to the park fund and some of the others like the TVT fund and other funds that are associated with system development charges. Other than that, budget-wise, we are sitting right around 86%, which is pretty good because our projection is about 66% at this point in time. So since we're about 2/3 of the way through. So anyways, everything's looking pretty good. Expenditures are down because we really haven't had a lot of travel, haven't had a lot of meetings, things of that nature. Overall, like I mentioned when we were traveling here, we have a few expenditures that we're going to have to address under supplemental budget. That'll be forthcoming here in December, January timeframe. So expect to see that. In that will probably be the Washington County contract for additional coverage when we were short-staffed. I think we might have a couple other little minor things here and there. Street fund, we may have some added cost for light poles or additional concrete work that we'll need to address as well. So as we progress, I mean, things are continuing on. Financials look pretty solid right now. So just keep an eye on it. As we mentioned previously, we'll take a hard look after the audit numbers come in to find out how we're faring.
So at that point, I mean, for us to understand any impact that COVID had on this budget, would that be more appropriate to, or will it be more visible after the audit? Or is there anything we see in here that could be COVID related?
No, I think those we would have seen last year because this year we budgeted with COVID in mind.
Right.
Whereas last year we didn't. And that's where we saw those budget shortfalls hit toward the end of last year.
Right.
And, I think I mentioned previously, like what we figured that number was roughly around 180 to 200,000 on what that shortfall looked like. So that was one of those things that we could potentially tap ARPA funds to patch a hole if we have one or we have a need.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or concerns?
Mark, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. So based on the closure and everything that we have going on, have we seen any impact or have we seen anything yet?
Well, we will. Obviously, we'll see a huge fall off in passport revenue. So that's probably going to be a loss of, anywhere from $16,000 to $20,000 passport revenue just in 1 month. So start adding that up. That's going to be a pretty sizable chunk if we keep the door closed.
Okay. All right. So,
and as I was mentioning earlier with the marijuana thing, as that comes, or the OLCC, as soon as that becomes effective, then I think they're saying we might lose up to 70% of our tax revenue from that.
Yeah.
So
that's unfortunate, but it was good while it lasted, but it's still more than we would have had if they weren't there. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So we'll need a motion for this.
Need a motion to approve financials.
Yes. Hello, anybody?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second. Kate.
Okay. We need to vote. All in favor?
I have unanimous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay. So moved. So approved. Okay. All right. So that's the end of that. Chief has already given his report. Mike, do you have any additional items to report on?
Not much to really go into right now. We kind of did a deeper dive into stuff that really hadn't intended to go on into. We're still working with ODOT on the TSP stuff. We have multi-party meetings this week with Clean Water Services, Washington County, Tiger. That's what Erin was talking about. She'll probably be on that meeting tomorrow as well. Had a meeting with Brett from GPI late last week and talked about some of the economic development opportunities around. I'd really like to see us start thinking strategically about what kind of economic development entities or items that we would actually be interested in pursuing, because the future will be here before too much longer. With that being said, we're still looking at a number of things, water supply and all those little small items here and there. Streets have started. They're going to start construction on Friday. We had reached out to the King City apartment complexes about a month or two back, and initially their response was very open and accepting to the concept that we might be able to do some parking there on 116th or use some of that area to add additional parking. I sent you all, I forwarded you all a copy of the email that I received from the management property group. this morning. I don't know if there's like just communication breakdown or lack of understanding what we're trying to accomplish by providing that additional parking spaces in that area to serve those residents. But as you can see from the response, it was not received favorably. So we'll keep trying to go down that avenue and hopefully build a rapport with the apartment complex and the management group and see if we can do this project for them. Essentially, it's the way I see it is like the city is basically going out of its way to provide a service for the apartment complex. So they theoretically should be jumping on board with this concept, but I don't know. So we have to have some more dialogue and figure out what's going on.
Okay. I would like to participate in any meeting that you have with them.
Yeah.
You know, because I think it's a worthwhile project, and we need to, the ownership needs to understand the benefits of it. And it seemed like it was clear to us to do the bulb out. There's no real loss to the complex. It's only a gain, and it improves the safety, not only for what we need to do on 116th, but for the residents to unload and load their cars. So we do need to have that conversation with them. Okay.
Other than that, I think we need to look at the potential for a special meeting October 6th. Just put that on your calendars if you wouldn't mind. Also, the ICMA conference is that week as well. So I'm going to have to try to juggle that into the calendar if we have a special meeting. I volunteered to help out so that we could get a discount on conference rates and fees. This is the International City Managers Association. They usually meet all over the world from, I think a couple of years ago it was in Brussels, and it was over in like Ohio last year, and this year it's in Portland. So this is an opportunity to actually go to a international city managers conference and garner some really good information and insight from managers across the world, really. So I have that on my agenda from, it would be October 1st through October 7th here in Portland. So I'll be going back and forth and attending that for that week. But if we do a Zoom meeting or something, I should be able to figure out how to get on.
They haven't made a final decision as to whether or not they're going to do it live, Mike?
They're doing it live, and they have the vaccine requirements. So anyone attending the conference has to show proof of vaccination. And for us, like those of us that volunteered, because they asked for volunteers from the city managers here in the Portland metro region to act as hosts and guides for a number of the tours and getting people to destinations and things of that nature. And so the rest of the city managers and myself from Washington County and Clackamas and Multnomah all volunteered to take time slots and fill the voids throughout this thing. So
sounds very worthwhile. Sounds good. So,
Mike, I have a question about that meeting. September has 5 Wednesdays. Would it work better to meet on the 29th, which is 2 weeks from now, or will we not have enough info?
that might work for me, actually.
and the info that we need, and we need to go into executive session at the end of this to talk about what we want to talk about at that meeting. Is that's what you're referring to, right, Mike?
I thought we weren't going to go into executive session.
Well, I want to make it clear what we're meeting about, and I would prefer to have that conversation in executive session. It'll be brief, but I think it's important.
Okay.
Okay.
Ronnie, I need your book.
Okay. All right. Sorry, but I just think it's important, Mike.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so it briefly, because I do want to get into the executive session. Mike, that was good. Thank you. Any other report outs from anyone? Go around the horn. Jamie? You're muted, Jamie.
Okay, unmuted. Okay, so the first point of order that I have just a few things, but I'll be brief. So the first one is, as most of you should be aware, Mark Brody is installing the art this week. You can go down and kind of see the progress. He does need volunteers tomorrow. We have a couple volunteers, but if there is anyone that is bored at home and would like to go volunteer, please go to the park tomorrow. He will be there all day. He's hoping to have the entire thing installed by Friday because the weather's changing and he wants to get it in. So what we do need to do is create the unveiling, the official unveiling of the art project. We are going to invite all the people back who participated in creating some of the art. And then I'd like to invite a whole bunch of VIPs and the press. So Mark and I were looking at that first weekend of October. And I know, Mike, we have some issues. So can everyone get their calendars out? Because can we just do this quickly and figure out the best day for everyone? Otherwise doing it by email is too hard. So the first option, Mark wanted the 1st of October. I know that, Mike, that doesn't work for you. Mike, does that work at any point during the day for you, or not? That entire day is out.
October, what was
the
it?
Saturdays, October, let me go back to October 1st. No, excuse me, October 2nd, which is that first Saturday. And I think you had back-to-back sports stuff going on.
Same here.
Okay.
Jamie, what if we sent out a doodle poll with different date options so that we can collect
that
way?
So here's what I'm going to say about the doodle poll. Okay. I'm happy to do that, but I want to set a deadline, and anyone who hasn't responded, they're stuck with the date that we choose. So, and I need like a 24-hour period of response time. So I will send out a doodle poll. I'll try to get it out by the end of the day tomorrow. And so email me if you need the doodle poll to go to a different email address than your city council email. Please let me know that and give me the email address, and then we can do it from there. Okay, so that's done. Then the next one, I need Mike and Ronnie. I need to put an agenda item on the next council meeting, because we are going to have a presentation by the Girl Scouts coming to ask for participation from the city about installing some peace poles. And we are going to have the girls are going.
What was that? What is it?
So peace poles. So
I wasn't familiar with that term.
So do you know what the peace pole is?
No, I don't.
So the peace pole is it's a square post, if you think of it, right? Just a normal large, I don't know if it's a 2x4 or a 2x6, but it is painted white, and then it has a message for peace. I can't remember the exact saying. It's something like world peace for all, or there's some message. And then what the Girl Scouts do, so you put up the pole, okay? On one of the four corners, it says it in English. And then the Girl Scouts, they research the most spoken languages in the community, and then translate the same peace message on the other three sides of the pole. It's painted white, it's very pretty. Okay. And they have fundraised to erect a couple of the peace poles in, they would like to erect them in King City. Tualatin has some, and Sherwood has a couple. And so the Girl Scouts are going to be coming to do an ask. Okay. They aren't going to be looking for money, but the girls themselves are going to present. So I'm very excited about this. We've been talking about it for a long time. Yeah. And so I am probably going to work with their troop leader on a few questions that they're going to kind of pre-prepare answers for. So we're not going to give them the exact questions, but we will give them the types of questions that we might ask. So I'll circulate those prior to the meeting for the next meeting. So, but can we put that presentation on the agenda? And then since we're shorter time, I will punt my other thing for next time.
Okay, smart. Thank you, Jamie.
Yes, I'll as well. So the water board advisory board meeting did not happen in August. I shared last meeting. So now it's pushed to October, so it will be October 13th. But one information that was shared was even though we're still in the drought and the river flows are not are low, but there is no concern for water right now. So there's nothing to worry about. We have enough water to keep us going until the rains come back again. That's all I'm reporting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Kate?
All right. I just want to remind everybody that we have Rachel Duke from Community Partners for Affordable Housing coming to do a presentation in October, our regular meeting as well. And I also want to acknowledge that today is the beginning of National Hispanic American Heritage Month. And there's a lot of information available online. You can go to HispanicHeritageMonth.gov to see what some of our national entities are doing and just take a look at some of the cool things that we have going on around the country. There was no Metro Policy Advisory Committee last month, so I don't have anything to report there.
Okay.
And I think that's it. That's all.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate it. All right, Micah.
Not a lot to report this month, as our PAB meeting is actually tomorrow. September's the 1 month where it's actually after our city council meeting, so I don't have anything there. And unfortunately, I was not able to attend the small cities meeting this morning, though I did ask, I know Mike was in attendance, so he might be able to provide a bit of an update on that.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Shauna.
The WACA board has not met since, I was just looking back on my calendar, since June. They take July and August off. So our next meeting is September 30th. So I don't have anything new to report for them.
Okay.
That's
all. All right, thank you. For me, I want you all to know that a decision has been made to cancel the mayor's golf tournament. We were trying to do it in the beginning of October, but because of COVID concerns, that will not happen. So that's 2 years in a row that we've had to cancel the golf tournament. Hopefully 2022 will allow it to occur, but we just can't take the chance. There's no need of putting this out there that way. Tomorrow I have a meeting. We were planning a retreat for the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium to do a variety of things, and including electing new officers and all of those kinds of things. We're going to meet tomorrow to determine whether or not that retreat will be canceled. I am voting to cancel. I just think, I want to follow the lead that if we have any control to not have these gatherings, to not do it. That's just my position on this. So I just want you guys to know that follows suit with not having the public come in to City Hall. And I think it's an important thing for me to continue to advocate for. So we will see how it goes from here. The League of Oregon Cities annual conference that was scheduled for Bend has also been canceled. And that will, they're going to try to do a virtual form of it, really reduced in the number of things that they're going to try to accomplish. But the trip to Bend for the LOC, the League of Oregon Cities, has also been canceled. Okay. So with that being said, Mike, can you very briefly take us to what we need to do for a quick executive session?
Sure. At this time, hang on one second, let me get the proper words.